Hello everybody, it's RH Sports TV here, and this is gonna be my first non-college basketball video, but basically, as you can see, this is RH Sports TV official 2013 MLB predictions. Take this with a grain of salt. I'm not a so-called expert. I'm a 16-year-old kid who's just kind of a sports fanatic, I guess, of all sorts for the most part. And MLB is definitely one of them, and expect a lot of MLB not recently, but in the future. Not recently at all. Recently, it's been college basketball up the wazoo, and it will be until the NCAA tournament's finished, and then you can expect a smooth transition into the Stanley Cup, this race for the Stanley Cup, the race for the NBA championship, and of course the MLB. But basically, this is going to go through my predicted standings, along with my predicted playoffs, and eventually my World Series picks. So first off, we've got the AL East, what many people consider to be the toughest division in baseball and the MLB, and I completely agree with them. The AL East is stacked from top to bottom, so it pains me to do this, but at number five, I've got the Baltimore Orioles. This isn't in any way me predicting they're going to be worse than last year at all. This is me predicting that the entire rest of the division, save for perhaps New York, is completely improved. So I like Baltimore. I was rooting for them last year, and I'll root for them this year, but I don't think it's going to happen just because Boston's and Toronto have improved markedly, especially Toronto. Tampa Bay looks to be a bounce back team, and New York is still the Yankees. So Baltimore takes up a spot in the cellar, but don't be surprised if this is an occurrence where the entire division finishes over 500. So, and for Baltimore fans, don't lose faith. You guys still have a good shot. But number four is the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox have improved markedly uh, compared to Baltimore, who Baltimore really didn't do anything over the offseason. They were pretty much what the Braves did last year. But Boston made some changes. Uh, Most notably, they what did they do? I don't even remember what Boston did. Hold on a second. All right, I'm back. But anyway, Boston's off season was basically a lot of fluid. Not all of it necessarily good, but most of it was. For example, some guys they lost. They lost. First of all, they traded off a few guys, headlined by prospects Jerry Sands and Ivan DeJesus or Ivan DeJesus, and bullpen member Mark Melanson, but they traded them for an all-star closer in Joel Hanrahan, so definitely a good move for them. They also picked up Koji Uhara for the bullpen as well. Probably not saying that right. And they also added Ryan Dempster to the rotation, so good there. In the lineup, they replaced Mike Aviles at shortstop with Stephen Drew. They also picked up Shane Victorino and Mike Karp, both good moves. Boston really didn't lose anything, and of course, a manager. I don't think John Farrell's the best manager, but come on, he's better than Bobby Valentine, right? Right? He's got to be better than freaking Bobby Valentine. But that's where I have Boston. Number three, I have Tampa Bay. Devil Rays, or formerly known as Devil Rays, the Rays trust me, they're a good team. Last year they looked like a decent team. This year they did some stuff. First of all, everybody knew they had rotation depth. They had rotation depth basically coming out of their ass. So what they did was they traded two of the guys, Wade Davis and James Shields. James Shields being a very, very good pitcher in particular. They traded them for two starting pitcher prospects in Jake Odorizzi and Mike Montgomery. And they also got outfielder Will Myers, who everybody in Central Florida is excited about. And I can't blame them for it. So Tampa definitely had a good offseason. That move alone, I think those are the good trades that benefit both teams in the deal. And it definitely benefited Kansas City, and it definitely benefited Tampa Bay. So Tampa still has definitely enough talent to go by. They added a few other guys, in particular, they added Junel Escobar, so that should be interesting. But I think Tampa is a very good team. Don't worry if you're a Tampa fan. The Shields trade probably won't bite you in the ass. In second place, I have the Toronto Blue Jays. The Toronto Blue Jays are that annual off-season winner where a team basically they're good, not great, and then they just go on a giant spending spree. In particular, the Miami Marlins did it last year. The Detroit Tigers of '08 did it as well. The Seattle Mariners in 2010. Some examples, and chances are you realize that all three of those teams failed hard. And in general, this is something I've picked up on. I don't really have a theory for it. It's not like the Patrick Ewing theory, but I definitely think it's something that exists. I definitely think it's the off-season winter curse. And I think it might hit Toronto a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. So basically what they did, they basically got Miami's entire roster for a few prospects, and then they also picked up R.A. Dickey for a couple of prospects, centered around Travis d'Arnaud. And if you're a Toronto fan, you should be excited. Toronto is a very, very good team this year, and they definitely have the talent to succeed. But at number one, I have the New York Yankees. Now, I do not like the Yankees. I will put that out there right now. Yankees are definitely one of my least favorite teams, along with the Miami Heat would be up there, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the San Francisco 49ers, the Atlanta Falcons, New England Patriots, teams like that. New York Yankees, I just despise I used to despise them because they bought all their players. Now I can't really use that excuse now that Hank Steinbrenner's in charge of the team. But I still definitely do not like them. Uh, and this offseason, they didn't really do that much. They lost Nick Swisher. They lost Rafael Soriano. They lost Russell Martin. They lost Eric Chavez. They lost a few other pieces too. But Euclid comes in to replace Chavez, basically, and for a little while to replace A-Rod. The other guys, they didn't really pick anyone up to I guess solve it, but I mean people are putting New York at like number 2 or number 3, basically anticipating that they're going to keep this entire roster. I got news for you. They're going to trade for somebody if they're in it but not winning, or if they're in it and they are winning, they'll trade. I promise you that. So that right there is why I have New York number 1. You guys will see the wild cards later, and you guys will see whether the AL East will get one of the wild cards. So next up is the AL Central. In stark contrast to the AL East, the AL Central is not nearly as good. In fact, there's only one team that's got a legitimate shot at finishing above 500. So with that, we'll start with number 5, the Minnesota Twins. The Twins had a pretty quiet offseason for the most part. They made 2 big trades, trading Denard Span and Ben Revere. In the latter deal, they picked up Vance Worley for the rotation. They lost a lot of guys in the rotation. Scott Baker being one guy, Carl Pavano being another guy. They picked up Mike Pelfrey as well to help with that. But in general, Minnesota revamped their starting rotation for the better or for worse. Their lineup is worse. Minnesota definitely regressed this offseason, but I like what they did just because I don't think anybody expected them to do anything this year. So at number 4, I have a few people's sleeper picks. Cleveland Indians. They've picked up some guys, in particular Nick Swisher, Michael Bourne, Mark Reynolds, guys like that. Brett Myers as well. They traded Shin-Soo Choo though, which is this is my biggest problem with what they're going to do this year, but I think it definitely made them better for the future because they picked up starting pitcher prospect Trevor Bauer in the deal. So I really like that deal for Cleveland. I think Bauer's still got a very high upside, and he could be a number 1 or 2 guy. So with that, I don't think Cleveland's going to be great this year because I mean last year they weren't that great either. But I think the veterans will at least make this team competitive. I'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'm buying too low on Michael Bourne. I mean, he is probably the best defensive outfielder in all of baseball right now. But some of these guys I'm not extremely thrilled about. Nick Swisher in particular, I think he's definitely being overrated right now. But there's Cleveland. And number 3, I have not Cleveland, Kansas City. And this isn't a ranking as most likely to win the division, because Kansas City would definitely be number 2. But this is how I think they're going to do. I made the mistake of not expecting, but predicting that Kansas City would be an above 500 team last year. That didn't work out very well. So this year they went out, basically they traded a few guys, headlined by prospect Will Myers, for James Shields and Wade Davis. I went over this trade earlier. I definitely think it helped Kansas City in that regard. Wow, that was very ungentlemanly like of me. But I think that makes Kansas City a lot better. It gives them a stellar top of the rotation, or not a stellar top of the rotation. It gives them a stellar pitcher and a decent rotation to go along with a pretty good lineup. I just think it'll probably take a year for the youth to mesh, but I could be wrong on that. Number 2, I got the Chicago White Sox. Surprising last year, and this year they didn't really add much. They lost AJ Pierzynski, Kevin Youkilis, Brett Myers, Francisco Liriano, guys like that. So Chicago's definitely gonna be worse. This is just because I think Cleveland's gonna have some chemistry issues, and Kansas City is gonna be youth issues. I think Chicago might be alright this year as far as the division standings, but note that I don't think Chicago is gonna win the division. I have Cleveland and Kansas City being more likely as winning it than them, but I have Chicago as my second place team. Number 1, obviously, everybody and their mothers are predicting Detroit to win the division, and for good reason. They didn't lose much this offseason other than closer Jose Valverde. They're going to be replacing him with Bruce Rondon, 22-year-old heater is a good way to describe it. And the last time in memory for me, a team replaced a pretty good veteran closer with a young prospect closer with some heat. It was the Atlanta Braves, and they ended up with the best closer in baseball. So, besides that, I don't know if that's a good deal for Detroit right now. They replaced Delman Young in the outfield with Torrey Hunter. Torrey Hunter's old, but I still kind of like the deal, I guess. But definitely the biggest move, or the biggest upgrade Detroit did was an upgrade they didn't even do through free agency or through trade. Getting Victor Martinez back from the disabled list. He missed the entire last season, and this year he's definitely going to be good. He's a very good contributor as far as RBIs are concerned. He's a very balanced hitter, and he's definitely going to bring a lot of pop into the middle of the Detroit lineup, and I really, really like that. Next is the AL West. I think I'm going to do the National League in next video, but for now, the AL West was actually changed this year. They picked up the Houston Astros, went from 4 teams to 5, and I have the Houston Astros at number 5. They're not good. I'm sorry, but the Houston Astros are not very good. They picked up a few guys. They lost a few guys. I don't really have to go in depth. Houston's not a good team. That's all I have to say. Number 4. Before you Athletic fans turn off the video, hear me out on this one. This isn't me saying they're going to fall too far. I think they're still going to be a slightly above 500 team. Jeez. They lost a lot. They lost Brandon McCarthy, Chris Carter, Stephen Drew, Cliff Pennington. They added Chris Young and Jed Lowry to start. And I think Jed Lowry in particular will stabilize the shortstop situation to an extent. But I just look at this roster, and I can't find too many players who didn't overachieve last year. And I certainly think a few of them are bound to regress. A few others might regress as well. I think Oakland's still a very good team. Don't misread their 4th place prediction for me as me not having any confidence in them. I just don't have any confidence that they're going to finish, and I don't think they're going to repeat last year, basically. Number 3, I have the Seattle Mariners. Mariners are a team I'm pretty high on. They made some good moves. They traded away Jason Vargas to the Angels for Kendrys Morales. I definitely like that trade. It gives them some pop, and they went out and they basically replaced Vargas with Joe Saunders. I like that as well. They made a trade for Michael Morse of the Nationals. Again, I like that trade. And they brought in Ibanez and Jason Bay on the off chance that maybe one of them might have a pretty decent year. Number two, I have the Texas Rangers, and there's a lot of people panicking. I mean, look at them. They lost Mike Napoli, replaced him with Pierzynski. I don't think that's a great replacement, but I mean that's about as good as they're gonna do. They lost Ryan Dempster, and I don't know who the hell they're gonna replace him with. They lost Michael Young, and they're replacing him with prospect Jurickson Profar. And biggest of all, they lost Josh Hamilton, replacing him with Lance Berkman. Oh, man. Texas, a lot of people are harping on them. Their bandwagon feels more like a sinking ship at this point. But I'm not calling for panic yet, because down the stretch, this team underachieved like hell. And that definitely skewed the overall value of this team. This was probably a 95 win team in general before this. And I think they're still probably an 85 to 90 win team. And I think Texas, Seattle, and Oakland should be an exciting trio to watch. Once again, I'm lower on Oakland than most, higher on Seattle and Texas than most. But one team that I'm definitely even with everybody else on is the Los Angeles Angels. I had them pegged to miss the playoffs last year. I'm not going to brag, just saying I'm good. This year they're going to make their move. They picked up Josh Hamilton. They picked up Tommy Hanson for the rotation, as well as Jason Vargas. They made separate deals, trading away Jordan Walden and Kendrys Morales for the two. And they lost Zach Greinke and Urban Santana and Danny Herron. All three of those, I think Greinke obviously is a big loss. I think Danny Herron's also going to be a pretty big loss for the team. I definitely think Herron was underrated, and he had a lot of people jumping off of the bandwagon, I guess, with his bad year last year. But I think he's still definitely good. But I look at this outfield, I see Josh Hamilton, Peter Bourjos, Mike Trout. I think Mark Trumbo, I don't know where Mark Trumbo plays, but they still got him as well. They got, I don't know, they got a lot of players. They got a lot of good players. And if you ask me, I think this is a very, very good Los Angeles team. So there you go. That's my first half, or first I don't know, first third maybe. Playoffs isn't a whole third, but that's basically the AL side of the predictions. I'll do the NL predictions next video, whether that'll be tomorrow, later today, a few days from now, I don't know. But there's my AL predictions. And this has been RH Sports TV. See you later.